Snow White 2025 versus Disney at its peak. It's flopped. Thank God it's flopped, and flopping in dramatic form. These are two videos from two different people who, to my knowledge, have never met each other. First one comes from my friend Ari Hoffman, who saw this in the center of the Center Woke universe, Seattle, Washington. This is opening night for Snow White. And it appears that the Hoffmans were utterly alone in the theater. That's Seattle. This is a completely different city, very much a similar effect. I guess there's a couple people in that theater. Now, we need to get to something that the star said about this, Rachel Zegler. She said something that speaks to human pride. Pride is an emotion that God abhors in people. And we'll get to that in a second because she made a prediction about this film. Do you remember the heyday of Disney in your mind before Disney decided to become a political organization? We have to be very careful about what we play copyright-wise. But there's a movie that if you compare the CGI to this storytelling, you compare what people did with pens and pencils and drawing out characters on their own, so what they were able to do with CGI and the heart of storytelling of Disney, because that's what it was. We'll get to that as well. We'll also get to some of the issues around this and why this thing appears to be flopping, and a hit song. Someone put the comments or the reviews people make about this movie into a song you need to hear. Disney's going to lose a lot of money in this. This is one of the worst opening weekends in history of Disney. Praise God. They've only made about $45 million on this. I believe the film was a $275 million budget, and that was opening weekend. That's when most people are supposed to go to this. This is going to be headed to the Netflix discount bin soon. Praise God. And Disney continues to pour money into efforts like this that all of us can look at and say this is going to fail, so how come they can't see it? Because forever they've been Disney. To me, this is very much like the buy and hold strategy, the 60-40 stock bond mix we've all been taught. Were you taught that? That's what people taught me early on. Just keep your portfolio mixed at 60-40 stock bonds. Go in and rebalance it from time to time. Forget it's there. Now, that all made sense when the American economy hadn't been inflicted by this disease where a company can be valued at 4,000 times revenues. That's a disease. Not only would that company need to increase the revenues by 4,000 times, but it would need to be and then some for that investment to make any sense. So companies like NVIDIA that continue to see these multiples upon multiples, that's one thing, or this. It doesn't matter how much data is shown about Apple, that it is not a growth stock. It doesn't matter how many times Tim Cook says, you're not a growth stock. It doesn't matter how anemic the new designs for the new iPhones become. That doesn't matter. A percentage of your money, and I think it's about 40% of every American's money who's investing in the stock market, if you're on an electronic trading platform, is going to them and to Facebook and to Google automatically without regard to how they perform. That doesn't make any sense. It's insane. In an insane market, do you really want buy and hold? Have my friend Zach Abraham, Chief Investment Officer, Bulwark Capital Management, take a look at your buy and hold campaign. Have him take a look at the old way of doing things, and he can tell you if you're exposed to extra risk or losing out on opportunity. At Bulwark, they actively manage every portfolio, which can reduce risk and volatility, and they are absolutely obsessed with risk management. So call Zach and have a conversation. No obligation. He'll do it on video, in person, or by phone. No cost, no obligation. Call him at 866-779-RISK. That's 866-779-RISK, or you can go to knowyourriskradio.com and simply sign up. Investment advisory services offered through Trek Financial LLC, and SEC-registered investment advisor. Investments involve risk and are not guaranteed. Past performance doesn't guarantee future results. Trek 25-137. So as this thing is flopping, there is a pop culture pushback that conservatives have gotten very, very good at. This is a guy who simply put together a song based upon user viewer reviews of this movie.
If I saw this movie on a plane, I would still walk out. This trailer makes me want to sit on the TV and look at my couch. I paid nothing to watch this trailer, but I already want my money back. Coming to a theater near me, is that a threat? They should have made Rachel CGI instead. Ron Brown and the 7 Discord mods. The CGI looks much better when I turn my monitor on. decline. I'm rooting for the poison apple. Wise Lord Farquaad for Snow White. This movie should come with a disclaimer.
That is solid work. Now, Disney, of course, knew about the pushback on this, given the way that the star treated half of America, specifically American voters who voted for President Trump. That should have been a warning sign. And they couldn't quite back her down, could they? Somewhere at the heart of her, there is a ridiculous amount of pride. Rachel Zegler had a, well, let's say, prophecy about the film.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them,
she's a good actress,
that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
Always and forever. That's sad. There is a long list of people who had their moments in Hollywood. A long list of people who are now signing autographs at malls. I'm not saying that's her future. She doesn't seem to think so. They'll always be there. Thank God she's got the approval of man. Because, that's long lasting. That's eternal. She seems to be trying to comfort herself watching this movie utterly flop. Is she learning anything? She spoke of her flaws. What about changing them? There was a time when Disney was a storytelling company. And you don't have to like the movie Fantasia. If you've ever watched it, it's lengthy. There's a lot in it. There's people who've told me, hey, this has sorcery, satanic images in it. Fair enough. You can see that stuff in there. But we're going to play just a piece of this to remind people what men and women with colored pencils and paintbrushes did, painstakingly putting together a movie that you cannot watch and not regard as visually stunning in its music and its scope. And this was a cartoon. It's called Fantasia, and it takes the Disney characters through just that, a massive fantasy universe. Pencils, pens, paintbrushes, manual animation. And in the CGI universe, things aren't much better. See, I think God signs his work. And I think the further we get away from using our hands to create films like that, I think the further we're getting away from the talent God gave us. There's no doubt God gave this young woman looks and perhaps some talent. I heard she's a great singer. How's she using them? To belittle others? To make fun of the original story? Because the original story was pandering to women, I've heard her say. Is it pandering for young women to want a Prince Charming in their life? To want a man who pursues them, who comes to them even in their deepest sleep, who defies a world that doesn't want them together, who chases down the girl with a glass slipper? I mean, she wasn't a princess, she wasn't elite, but he loved her? That's pandering? It's prideful for her to say that. And there was a time where Disney took stories that were of the heart, the human desire, and they told them with the skills and the hands that God gave people. I contend the further we move back from that, the more flops like this we're going to see. And in this case, given this young lady's prideful stance, praise God.